To start we kind of finished out the plant, so plant structure and functions. We talked about transpiration of the plant respiratory, so we may have a chance to revise that till at the end of this module. So, and definitely we're gonna finish this module by this term. So probably next week or the week after we are finishing all of that modules, and that means that you're gonna get your half yearly combined module 1 and 2. Yeah, time to revise some of the module 1 contents at the time. So it will be some questions that you had in a topic test. Some of the questions kind of like duplicated, some exactly similar type of questions too. I'll let you know like once we finish the whole module 2 about more about those tests you get. But for now, let's focus on that the heterotrophs or heterotroph, which is like basically some animals or rather than plants. So page 64, please. We're going to talk about two systems of the animals today. One is the respiratory, two is the digestive systems. So you need to know both of those systems in terms of the transportations too. So first, let's compare the main difference between the animals, heterotrophs, versus the autotrophs. Okay, defining that, differentiate the heterotrophs and autotrophs is just one thing. Autotrophs can self-generating the energy, and they oxygen too. And this is why we said the autotroph. They're automatically generating the energies by themselves. Like I'm giving the example of plants using the what? The photosynthesis. So those are using this photosynthesis, and by doing so, they can create some the glucose from the CO2 and the water. But heterotrophs are not able to generate obtain the more like the glucose or the energy source. They need to consume the food in that reason, whether that's animals like a plant or the insects or the fish. They need to eat something, they need to consume something so that they can gain the energy, and they also need to get some the gas exchange as well. Plus that nutrients and consumptions. So let's talk about the gas exchange first of all. Then gas exchange in the animals. First of all, animals, whether that be animals, autotrophs, or the heterotrophs, we all need that oxygen gas. Oxygen gas required. Now, Eric, why do we need an oxygen gas? All the animals require oxygen gas for what? I mean, this is why we get the breathe. But why do we need oxygen in the body? Thank you. Cellular respiration. Do you remember the chemical formula of cellular respiration? Yes. Okay. Which is C6. All I start from that. We're using the glucose or the sugar with the oxygen gas or O2 gas, producing this into water. Very good. Water and the CO2 gas there. It's kind of balancing that to 6666. That's all you need to know for that. And that also produces, as we learned in the module 1, a lot of the ATP from it too. So think about how many cells we have in our one body. Like we have millions, trillions of the cells. They all need to go through this cellular respiration, not only for the water or the CO2, for the ATP over here. So we have two gases we can see from here. One is the oxygen gas, second is the carbon dioxide gas. So what we need to do is for the cellular respiration, O2 is required. okay, means that goes intake. We need to intake the oxygen. CO2 is the byproduct. Means that we should outtake. We should outtake. We should remove the carbon dioxide from your body too. And the parts, the organ system that using that we able to make the exchange the gas is known. The parts that we are actually doing the intake of the oxygen and outtake of the CO2 is known as respiratory organs. Respiratory system. So we're going to talk more about the respiratory systems in that. So page 64, please, in the last dot point. All gas exchange structures share common characteristics to ensure that efficient functions and maximum exchange of gases in that region. So one, they have a very large surface area that has been enhanced by the folding, branching, or the flattening, deepening, or the structure. That's basically what we have in the lungs. Think about the size of lungs that you have. This takes basically a half of your upper body. Okay, and the bottom is your digestive system that you have. So we take a huge part of the lungs because it takes a large surface area. It kind of emphasizes that the importance of the gas exchange in your body as well too. It is very simple. If you just can't breathe, you die. That's it. So you need to have the really big capacity of the lungs, ensure that we get the good gas exchange. It's also proven in here. So we have large surface area allows that faster rate of diffusion to supply oxygen and to remove the carbon dioxide. 2, have moist, highlighted place, moist and thin surface to ensure that oxygen and carbon dioxide dissolve for easier diffusions. So most of your lung, the respiratory tract, started from your nose, okay? Start from your nose, nostril, goes to the pipe down here. They all be moist because they efficiently mix dissolving those gases. So the tininess decreases in the distance that the gases have to travel, and they're in very close proximity to an efficient transport system that will transport the gases to and from the cells in the body too. Have you ever wondered that, why lungs located in right here underneath the neck? Why don't we have a lungs in the bottom? It's going to tell you that we need to shorten the track of the airway. If you have a really long pipe, if you have imagine that if you have lungs looking in your tummy, that means a kind of long pipe. It's more inefficient in terms of the exchange of gases. And guess what? Lungs also be kind of having the heart that's embedded inside the two. So heart and lungs are kind of closely connected as well too. You're going to learn about circulatory system. Blood, which is also be transporting your blood and the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, need to get close to. So we don't have the heart at the bottom and the lungs at the top. We have the heart and lungs in the kind of closely packed in that region as well. So page 65 shows you that some gas exchange of mammals, showing you some of the mammals when we say the mammals, we mainly talk about the humans these days. It shows you that some of respiratory a system of the human, the organs too. So started from the nasal cavity, which is basically what you have, the kind of hole the space. You have a nose, pharynx, that's the airway, that's a pharynx. Larynx, that's when you have the vocal cords over here. Okay, that's basically closing and opening, and you have a vocal cords inside the too. You have the tract called the trachea, started from the beginning of the lungs. And from that, we have something called the bronchus. There are 3 types of bronchus, primary, secondary, and tertiary. You don't need to know the primary, secondary in here. Just say, from that long tract or from the larynx to the lungs, like if you think about trees, that's a tree. Can you think about trees there here? Okay. Consider that trees, if that stem, or not the stem, sorry, the trunk of the tree is known as the trachea. the branches that goes on to the trees, you may think like this, you may think of tree structure there, is basically the bronchos, the branches. That's what the branches. Trunk. Now, we have some leaves on that, trees there too. Those leaves, you may just imagine that this is known as the alveoles, which it look like this kind of shape. That's also given here too, okay? So that's basically leaves. I believe that I'm going to demonstrate that that's basically same as the alveoles in your lungs too. So the way you can memorize the respiratory tract, respiratory system is think about the tree structure, the trunk, branches, and the leaves. We have the trachea, which is like a trunk, branches like the bronchs, and we have the leaves for like an alveoles there too. What we see there is, as we're going down in here, they're increasing the surface area even further more. So from that structure, in the anatomical structure of the lungs, we are able to know that this part, which is leaves and branches, are the main parts that are doing some gas exchange. That's basically showing the structure of the alveoli here. As you can see that, each of the alveoli, the leaves of their lungs, are surrounded, kind of wrapped up with the capillaries, which are really thin blood vessels. The reason why we have the thin blood vessel is you can see that it's kind of spider web, kind of wrapping all that. So that they are having efficient gas exchange due to that, flattened, and a really large surface area too. Does that make sense? Okay. And also remember that the diffusion process is always flowing from high to low. High to low. So, going back to this gas exchange in the alveoli gas in the gas surface there, page 66 is showing the increase there. So I showed the structure of the alveoles, which is look like this. This is one alveoli structure there. Assume that we have a lot of the blood vessels. So we have a vessels goes like this, showing the one blood vessel. Okay, so that's a blood vessel or capillaries. This is the alveoli. Now, when you inhale, guys, you're basically inhaling for the purpose of intake the oxygen. So assume that you inhaled now. You inhale the gas. Means that during the inhalations, you get the oxygen gas into the alveoles. So it means that you get a full of the O2 gas present in this case here. Now, next to the alveoli, we have blood vessel with the capillaries there. It has the low concentration of the O2. So, as we learn from the diffusions, the oxygen gas will flow from the high to low. It means that we were able to see that oxygen gas moves into the capillaries in that region. That's what happens when you inhale the gas and store the oxygen in your the lungs. Okay. Now, as a byproduct of the cellular respiration, every cell in your body are producing some CO2. And CO2 can be toxic if you have a certain amount of CO2 embedded in your body because it will alter the pH. Okay. Actually, what would be the effect of having too much CO2 therefore decrease the pH of your body?
Well, maybe like there's like an optimal condition.
There's optimal condition pH of body, but what if that we pH optimally would be 7.2 to 7.4? That's kind of optimal that we want. Well, what if we have a pH that's below 7? That's possible. If you have building too much CO2 in your body, means that if you're not inhaling, exhaling, means that you get too CO2. It makes your body to get really acidic. How does it affect something? It affects the enzyme activity. Okay, means that as your body goes like acidolyzed, means that getting more acidic. Enzymes goes to the stage of the denaturizations. They are not functioning. They kind of, you can imagine like putting some acid to a bit of like in a vinegar, into like some meat or something, they change the colors quite easily too. Similar things happen to the enzyme. They got frozen or change the formation of the protein itself too. Means that you're basically dying yourself. You're killing yourself by doing so. Okay, so CO2, and if that goes to the brain cell, it start to damaging your brain cell as well too. So it is very important that we need to exhale, remove the CO2. So in the case of here, we have the CO2s available. That is, use the capillary in the blood cells. We have a lot of CO2, which is a byproduct of the cellular respiration. So blood is kind of helping to transporting the CO2 from the end, or hemoglobin is helping to transporting CO2 to the lungs. Then have a think about it here. In the capillary site of that, we have a huge, high concentration of this CO2. In the alveoli site, we have not much concentration. So you will see the diffusion of CO2 into the alveoli from the capillaries there. Then what do we do once we get the oxygens done? And you exhale with the CO2 gases. Does that make sense? This is how we use the diffusions to explain the gas exchange in your lungs or the alveolus between capillaries and alveoli. Yes?
Oh wait, sorry. Capillaries hold the carbon dioxide and...
It's not holding. It's basically like having lots of concentration. Blood is pumping every seconds, every like in a millisecond as your heart is pumping all the times too. Means that every single time your heart is pumping, okay, means that the alveoli and capillary, which are blood vessels, are exchanging gas in every single time. Okay, so when we're talking about the respiratory system, we also need to talk about the circulatory system as well too, because that main function of the circulatory system is transporting those oxygen and CO2 gases. So the blood vessels or the blood cells now carry lots of the oxygen. What they do, we call it oxygenated blood cells or blood, is now passing that blood oxygen into your from head to toe. So that your body will now using that for the cellular respiration, going for the another energies too. Okay, this is how you maintain your body temperature, by the way. Because we use lots of the energy to maintain your body temperature at 36.7, again, for the enzyme activity. If that body goes too cold, denaturization of the enzymes too. So everything is kind of related. This is called the homeostasis or the kind of coordination of the body, which we'll learn a little bit more details. We're probably doing the PhD too. Okay, so page 66, let's highlight some of the important points in here. The alveoli in the lungs have all the features that allow efficient gas exchange. So this is kind of development to that for this region. One, increased surface area is achieved by approximately 300 million microscopic alveoli that are supplied by the 280 million capillaries per person, by the way. Yeah, that's how much the alveoli and capillaries you have in your lungs. And they're working really hard even now. Each alveolus have the folding of the, highlight that please, folding of the thin interior lining, thus further increasing the surface area. 2. Each alveolus has a thin lining made with the flattened cells that are in the single layer, facilitating the efficient diffusion of gas across a very small distance. 3. The surface of the all parts respiratory system is moist, as we discussed it too. The air inside the alveoli is saturated with the water vapor, and the mucus-lined epithelium reduces the evaporation of this water. This ensures that oxygen and carbon dioxide that diffuse across the gas exchange and surface are in the dissolved form, enhancing the efficiency of diffusions. This is why you carry a lot of mucus in your in the respiratory systems as well too. Okay, that's also what happens for some other systems too. For the numerous blood capillaries that closely surround the outside of each alveolus ensures that alveoli are in close contact with the blood as well too. Okay, does it make sense to all? This is why we are able to breathe in. And guys, remember that in the lung, huge on the size of the lungs, you have a full of the alveoli, which is kind of, you can just simply imagine as the leaves of the trees. That's actually kind of good terminology we can understand about structure of their lungs or the respiratory systems. Any questions for this one? All good? Okay. So as we discussed that, yes, that's basically concentration diffusions then. Then what about in? That's for the mammals. Most of the mammals sharing the lungs, not only for humans too. Like you can think about mammals carrying the lungs too. Okay, cow, pig, whatever, like a dog. Now, fish is the organism, is a heterotrophs, doesn't have a lungs. What they have is they have something that very different to the humans or the mammal system. They have something called a gill. So, aquatic animals also need to obtain the oxygen because they can't produce the oxygen gas by themselves. Okay, not the energy, sorry, they can't produce the oxygen gas. They can't go for the photosynthesis, which means that they need to breathe in the oxygen for the cellular respiration as well. But how are they gonna get the oxygen from the water? I mean, you can't breathe in the water because there's no oxygen, enough oxygen you can breathe it in. So what they do, they're using the gill, like which is called the gas exchange structure. The gill that fish have characteristics that can extract the maximum possible oxygen amount of oxygen from the water. So what you can see from the gill structure is you see that the gill is basically made with lots of filaments. So what they do, they are filtering the water when they inhaling, not the gas. When they're drinking some water, the gill is kind of filtering the water and just extracting the oxygen from it. Now, one thing is, gill is not able to functioning without the water. This is why fish dies outside the water. They can't really take the gas itself. They need to filter the oxygen from the water they absorb. So that's what we see from the surface area. So water goes in there, kind of filtering inside the gill. They're capturing the kind of water as much as they can. Does that make sense? Also, this is why if you ever have like some aquarium, like a small aquarium, you need to put some oxygen into that the water tank, dissolve the oxygen. Otherwise, these fish will use all the oxygen dissolving the water. Means that they are building up the CO2 into water too. You probably ever seen like this is why in the aquarium they put the oxygen gas tube in. We don't have to worry that on the oceans, which is the open water system too, because in that surface of the water they exchange the oxygen to carbon dioxide. But that's for the aquarium case. Does that make sense too? Okay. All right. What about the insect? The three. So we've done the mammals. We've done the fish. Now insect is kind of different to what we have in the mammals. It's best to see that page 68 in forms of this. So insects are carrying this somewhat little similar to the like mammals too, but they don't have this in a special called like function part called the lungs. If you ever dissect, I mean, I assume that you don't dissect the insect though, but if you think about the insect, they have so small body mass, they can't really carry the huge lung capacities. So what they do is they have branches of those trachea, like branches. Okay, those branches are surrounded by the capillary muscles, and what they do is they directly going to give that oxygen to oxygen and the gas exchange at the from muscles to trachea itself. This is not really involving with the heart because those are having like open circulatory systems rather than closed circulatory systems. So this gives them too. There's a reason why insects, many of the insects can live with the less amount of the oxygen than the mammals. If you think about like the ants, for example, they're really living underground. They haven't much got, they're not sufficient amount of oxygen for the mammals. But ants can survive underground for a longer period of time too. The reason for that is they have systems that are so efficient, they can exchange the gas so easily. So that's shown on that page 68 here too. This part, please. Insects take in and out, expel air through the structure called the spiracles. Highlight that, which are in effect breathing pores. So they don't have the mouth. Basically, the mouth is not for the breathing. They have pores in the bodies. So to ensure these spiracles are not continuously exposed to the drying effect of the environment, they have valves to regulate the opening and close. As well as this, They have a valves. No gases exchange can occur through their body covering. Insects do not have the lungs or the blood capillaries. Let's highlight that, please. They do not have the lungs or blood capillaries because they are small organisms. They can achieve the exchange of gas using the much simpler system. That is, system involves the branching air tubes called the tracheal tubes, which carry the air directly to the cells of the body. Okay, so lungs, mammals, we're using kind of respiratory system to pass the gas. They don't need to. They just directly goes to the cells from that respiratory system. So air that enters the spiracle is drawn into these tracheal tubes of the trachees, and these are kept open by sparing rings of tough supportive substance called the chitins. You don't have to know all the details about those two, but it's important to know the differences between mammals, fish, and insect respiratory systems, because I'm talking about general heterotrophs. Okay, again, that's respiratory system differed by all the internal respiratory system, that is from the blood or no blood. We're going to talk about the open blood systems later next week too. But can you see the difference between like mammals respiratory system, fish, and insect in terms of their characteristics? So have a think about how you're going to answer this question 1 on next page, please. Identify the characteristics of the efficient gas exchange surface and the related these to the structure of the gases exchange structure in the mammals, please. Okay, there are question 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, could you answer these 3 questions then? We're going to go through the answers all together. Identify the characteristics of the efficient gas exchange. The related these to the structure of the gases exchange and the structure in the mammals. So just remember, for every single respiratory tract, they are sharing some common features. 1, they always have a large surface area. For the mammals, what could give them the big surface area? First of all, they have the by the branching, like a branching those trachea and the bronchos, and we have the million of tiny air sacs, also known as alveoles. Millions of those. Okay. We also have the flattened and the single layer cells, which is maximizing this, and that's really efficient for the gas exchange. 2, most of those are also sharing that thin, really thinness. The shorter diffusion means that the shorter the diffusion distance. Which means you don't have the lungs at the bottom of your body. You have them right in front, next to the trachea, next to your nose, as you can inhale and exhale more efficiently. And basically single layers, that's also related to the flattened. This is also goes over here to the flattened and single layer cells due to that reason too. If you have really the respiratory system located in the bottom, then you might need a really thick and really big, like a tube you need. Just like a plant, you can think about it here. But we only have a really thin layers of that for the effectiveness of the gas transfer. 3 is we tend to have the moisture. The moisture gives that dissolving gas, but for better or efficient diffusions. So that's basically all the thin fluid dissolving of the inhaled gas. And the 4 is, and the last factor is the, due to that, they will have now stiff the concentration gradient. That actually goes to the extent like really extreme to one extreme to another extreme. To say alveoli has an extremely high concentration in the oxygen, whereas carbon dioxide almost zero oxygen there. But there are some, but it means that oxygen will kind of diffuse into the from alveoli, from lungs to the capillary really fast speed and a high rate of the reaction. Same for the carbon dioxide then. And this is why whenever you breathe in and out, you get the efficient amount of the gas exchange. So this is kind of give you a reason why for someone who's not well, who's sick, they're panting for that. A lot of times they have something wrong with the lungs, means that they could be a blockage, could be some damage in the lungs too. This causes them they're not efficiently exchanging gas. So studying about some biology or the human biology, it kind of giving some ideas about disease type 2 or the pathology later on too. It's kind of interesting to kind of relate that to what causes them having what symptoms. You're not learning more details about like a diseases type in year 11. You're gonna learn more in the year 12 in the module 7 and 8. Okay, PHP, you're gonna learn more details from that too. All right, this is how we can then relate it to the mammal systems as well too. That's for question 1. Question 2. Explain why living things need to continuously exchange gas with their external environment. Living things as in like not only for the autotrophs or the heterotrophs as well too. It is vital. It is vital. So let's write it down. What's the purpose? So the purpose of the gas exchange for all the organisms. Number 1, we need to have that for obviously for cellular respiration. And guess what? This means that to produce the sufficient amount of the ATP, which is energy, for their for their various functions. For their various functions. 2. CO2 is not used for the cellular respiration. It's a byproduct, so we need to remove that. That's in the category of the waste removal. We need to remove the waste, like like a CO2. As we discussed that, carrying too much CO2 in your body means it will decrease your pH levels. It will start denaturing the enzyme activities. Sometimes, if you get a really low pH in your body, it will start damaging your brain cells straight away, or nerve cells. So you actually get to die really quickly due to that reason. So the importance of the continuous, like the exchange in that case, this will now. So for these reasons, the continuous, the exchange, continuous and spontaneous exchange of gas is like really significant. So that means that we are able to maintaining the optimal, the O2 gas level. That's the first, and we are able to eliminating any of the waste product. Including the CO2 in that case. Okay, that's for question 2. 3. Identify the structures involved and outline the process for the type of gas exchange in A, fish, and 2, the insect. So let's talk about the fish first of all. Instead of they having a lungs, they have a very specific parts called that the gills. Okay, so 3 parts: fish, the respiratory system, or the system structures. Obviously, all the fishes you've been seeing, they have a mouth. They don't have a nose, by the way. Okay, they have a mouth. So that what they do mouth, they are taking the intake of the water. They have a gills, of course, they have the blood vessels. Of the parts that involve in the fish respiratory system, especially these two. Okay. And then what do they do for the removal, the process of that? First, they go through the water intake the water through the mouth, and the two, the gill, the water will now flow, water flow into the gill, not a capital, into gills. And after that, there will be a gas exchange. So they're basically the gill, like a filtering the water through that kind of layers of the gills to capture, obtain the dissolved, the oxygen gas. In other words, if that's a kind of gill structure there, when the water comes into that, this is working as this. Water goes into in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, due to the kind of folding structure of the gill. Now, consider that water contains the higher concentration of the oxygen than the gill, which means that gill, which has the lower concentration of oxygen, from the water to that, it's kind of diffused into it. So this is one of the reasons why fish do not need to have that moisture, unlike the humans, unlike the mammals. Okay, they still have the large surface area, thin kind of the shape too. So the gill is kind of where is gill located? Right next to the mouth, right next to. So it kind of shorten the diffusion distance and using the steep concentration gradient, but moisture already being consumed in here. So gill is also be the consumed, but not so. If you look at the gill of the fish ever, you'll probably see that they're like kind of brush-like, rather than like in a lung shape. And then that's basically a gas exchange, and you get the gas exchange. And after that, the water, after they use that, the water dispersion. That take that water out. So in that water that they're taking out, there are some like a dissolved carbon dioxide there too. So they can efficiently kind of managing that level of the oxygen and carbon dioxide as well. It's kind of similar. So every organisms are, because in theory of the evolutions, it's kind of we kind of believe that all the eukaryotes, or the carrying the same kind of similar respiratory system, are from one common ancestor, or many common ancestors too. Which means humans and fish are used to be in the one common ancestor as well too. Same for the amphibians. Okay. What about for the insect? Okay, insect has the slightly different structures than the mammals or the fish. So question for insect. Insect, the respiratory. The system. One, they first have a really tracheal, so TRA, tracheal system. This is somewhat very different to the lung system. This is kind of really branched. The tracheal system is kind of branches. Branching tubes, network of branching tubes, branches of the tubes directly connected to the tissues, without using the lungs or alveoli in this case. In that case, they have a system called the spiracles, SPI, CLAS, the tiny opening of the insect. So they have pores, tiny opening, or the pores in the body, or the surface of the body in that case. So in that case, insect doesn't really use the mouth or nose to breathe or take the gas exchange. They have pores in the bodies. So this is the reason why insects with the covered with the oils can quickly die or using some of the insects repellents. They're actually using the same things too. Okay, they're kind of killing the pores of the insects in the body, so they can't really breathe from it. So that's kind of repellent, working as repellent too. Does that make sense though? Okay. So that's basically they're taking the gas intake and some gas exchange and air release. So basically same procedure as other heterotrophs. Yes.
Would reptiles like be the same as mammals?
Reptiles be sharing some features of mammals, having the lungs as well. Reptile, but they have a different a circulatory system, like in terms of the open circulatory systems. So in terms of the respiratory system, they have sharing the same commonalities that the lungs, or snakes, they might have that. So next week, we're going to talk about different type of the circulatory system, closed and open. It's giving us a little more ideas about it too. Okay? But yeah, they still breathe in and out too, okay, the reptiles. All right, that's all for the respiratory system. The process, what are we saying? Like inhale, air intake, gas exchange, and that's basic air release. It's much simpler than the fish or for the mammals too. Okay, any questions about the respiratory system, guys? No? Okay. All right, before we move on to the digestive system, let's have a quick break, and then we're going to come back with the digestive system. So we're going to talk about mammalian digestive system. Well, specifically we're talking about human because we are more familiar with the human digestive system rather than other animals yet. Okay. So for the human, all mammalian digestive systems, basically you have to think about your body. You got to think about your body and think about your body functioning to everything there. You need to consume some food now, because unlike the plant, which is autotrophs, we are not able to create our own sugar. Okay, so this is why, like Eric now, you're having some sugar, basically you're consuming some energy. Because that sugar comes into your body and kind of digested it in. So, few things we have to understand about digestion here. One, you got to consume that, you're going to kind of break down into the few, and then you're effectively absorbing the nutrients. Two, you got to waste removal as well too. So unlike the previously for the respiratory system, which is gas exchange, this is more about the nutrient exchanges then, or nutrient absorption is required. So giving some anatomy of those human digestive system, A, B, C, D, F. Let's have a look at them from A. It's kind of obvious. A is simply your mouth. And yes, mouth is a part of the digestive system. Okay, we also have the tongues for the G. Oh, sorry, not the tongues. The F that we have on the top, at the top of your, in the back of your mouth, at the bottom of your tongue, is called the salivary. Oh, can't spell. Salivary. S-A-L-E. Very gland, which is kind of the irresponsible of the producing some saliva in your mouth, so making your mouth keep moisture in that some of the reason, and there are some enzymes in that too. G, it is that part is known as the don't worry about the G, the throat. H is that where we have the tube in between your mouth to the stomach. It's called the oesophagus. OES, oesophagus. So we get trouble. P-H-A-G-U-S, oesophagus. Now in UK and in English, we put the O. Some in a state, they've just excluded the O. That's ES, but we just put the O. All right, on your B, on this left-hand side, the big chunky brown section is called the liver cell. Something that's very important digestive system too. Underneath of that, the small a sac, the green sac, is known as a gallbladder. It's actually one word, gallbladder. There's no space, so I need to write that. Gall, G-A-L, bladder. D, that we have a kind of large this kind of things, these portions called the large intestine. Okay. E is the called the rectum that you have on your bottom. Rectum, R-E-C-T-U-M. Rectum, where we get some muscles on your hips, basically, and controlling the flows of the feces that's coming out in anus of the L. Now, on that, inside of those kind of large intestine, we have the small intestine. Given, and then J is the that we believe that's a pancreas. Also releasing the very important enzymes. And J, I'm sorry, the last one, I, is just basically stomach. Now, for the human digestive system, yes, you need to know all an anatomy of that. It's kind of common sense. You need to know those. We sometimes have the appendix. Appendix should be located at the bottom here, but appendix is not really part of the human digestive system because we don't really use the appendix. Okay, that's appendix is useful like some of the herbivores, like those even consuming some plants rather than some carnivores, which is like some eating meats. So that's the anatomy of the human the digestive system. Let's talk about some functions of the digestive system then, please. So the digestive system have three main functions. Highlight that, please. Three main functions. One, digestion of food. Two, absorption of the nutrients. Three, elimination of solid food waste. Okay, so that's digestion, absorption, elimination are the key functions of your digestive system. So digestion is what then? It's a process of the breaking down food into the component the body can absorb. That's called a digestion. So we have two types of the digestion. One is the mechanical. So that's a mechanical. You can write it down, mechanical digestion. As you can tell from the mechanical, yes, some sort of physics involved means that you're basically breaking down using your tooth, using some of the stomach movements into small pieces. Why do we need to do so? Because by chewing and breaking down the big chunk into small, you're increasing the, again, surface area to the volume. So that's breaking chunk of food into small pieces that just take place mainly in the mouth and the stomach. The stomach is actually kind of trembling, kind of shaking that to make it small pieces too. Secondly, we have the chemical digestion too, which is giving you that breakdown of the large complex food molecules into small, simple nutrient molecules that can be absorbed by the blood. This type of we're using the small intestine, like from the liver, any other parts too. So after food is digested, the resulting nutrients are absorbed. Absorption is the process in which substances pass into the bloodstream and where they can be circulated throughout the body. Absorption of nutrients occurs mainly in the small intestine. And think about the reason why the small intestine is so long and so narrow and have lots of the folding, because of that absorption of the nutrients. Any remaining matter food from the cannot be digested and absorbed passes into the large intestine as a waste. The waste later passes out the body through the anus in the process of the elimination. All right, let's have a look at some of each of those. The digestion then. Start from the mechanical digestion again. That's giving you all that and summary again. So start from the mouth. Let's start from the mouth. So page 75 shows the structure of the mouth you should see. So we have some portion. So think about, guys, you can feel your mouth, what you have in your mouth. You have some tongue, you have teeth. Think about why we have that, or how we use that when you're eating some food. First of all, you are chewing, you're tearing, chewing some food, so that you are able, from the big chunk of food, you're able to make the small pieces. That's a good example of the mechanical digestion. 2, you move your tongue around, so effectively rolling the food around your mouth so you're chewing that more efficiently. But Eric, like now, you are having some lollipops in your mouth, but you're not chewing it. Can you feel that? The lollipop you used to have is now gone, basically. It's gone without the help of the chewing. Why is that? It's a saliva. There we go. Saliva in your mouth is why we need to have moisture of the saliva. It's kind of helping to digest. Now, there in the mouth, we have the enzyme called the amylase, which is like an enzyme that's helping to decompose that glucose from the big sugar to small sugar. So that's the one thing we're going to talk about in the mouth as well. So, amylase only for the glucose. So that's given the first up here. Mouth is the first digestive organ the food enters. The sight, smell, and taste of the food stimulate the release of digestive enzyme by salivary glands inside the mouth. So you taste it, your bud in your the tongues kind of give you alarming call to your stomach. Hey, we got to have something in here. You got to wake up. You got to work now. Okay, that's what the stimulus is doing it. Also, the major salivary enzyme called the amylase, it begins the chemical digestion of the carbohydrates by breaking down starch into the sugar. So Eric, you had lollipop. Basically, the amylase are helping to decompose that sugar into the more small carbohydrate into sugar forms too. Does that make sense? Okay, and then we also begins the mechanical. So in mouth, you have both. Let's talk about the mouth here again. Mouth have the both of the mechanical and also chemical digestions. Chemical by the amylase, which is the enzyme, okay, like the amylase decomposing the carbohydrate into sugar. Mechanical, chewing, rolling, kind of rotating, so that you're able to get the small surface or bigger surface area too. So now after that, you're swallowing that food. It goes to the pharynx. The food moves into the oesophagus. So the oesophagus is a long, narrow tube that passes the food from the pharynx to the stomach by the peristalsis. Guys, the meaning of that is ever like try that, but don't try it at home. You go upside down, try to dive in chewing the food, swallow the food. The food is not coming down to the tube, not because of the gravity. Your oesophagus kind of moving, shrinking, kind of chewing the food down, so that you actually get can swallow the food even you're upside down, or when you're in the water, you're actually just swallowing something food in the low pressure. Okay, so that's the process called the peristalsis. Means that is kind of squeezing that tube. You can imagine squeezing like making sausages, like squeezing that, so that you're able to passing this food from the mouth to the stomach. And that's it. That's the whole function of the oesophagus. It doesn't have any digestive function. It doesn't have the mechanical or the chemical digestions. It's basically passing the food from mouth to stomach more efficiently. There's maybe some mechanical digestion by chewing this, but that's not really effective. It's not strong enough those two kind of chewing. Okay. At the end of the oesophagus, a muscle called the sphincter controls the entrance to the stomach, and the sphincter opens to let the food into the stomach and then closes again to prevent the food from passing back into the oesophagus. This is why you don't get reflux every single time when you eat the food. And if you get some issue with the sphincter, by the way, you are continuously get a reflux, kind of vomiting sensation all the times too. So we got the oesophagus. GUS. Get out of the mouth. Now you move it into the very important part called the stomach. Stomach has both of the mechanical and the chemical digestion too. That mechanically, stomach can like shrink in and out. So basically, it's a kind of trembling, moving. It can expand it like a balloon. It can expand it and shrink, expand and shrink, so that it's kind of decomposing that mechanically. So it's a sac-like organs that we have. The size of your basically fist is the size of your stomach that you have there too. Okay, so basically you can imagine your sac is open, close, open, close, open, close every single time you're having some food. So that this stomach can be really shrinking really small too, can be expanded like a balloon as well. As you can feel the tummy sometimes when you have too much food, goes expanded from the stomach. So they're working really hard inside too. This carries the huge amount of the hydrochloric acid. We call it stomach acid. Now, as we learned probably in the chemistry, the stomach acid or hydrochloric acid is known as one of the strongest acid that we have. That what they do, the fluid hydrochloric acid, it kills the bacteria in the food and gives the stomach that low pH needed to digest enzyme that work in the stomach. The enzyme called the pepsin, which is chemically digested protein. This was the enzyme that we used for the previous the track we had from the junket tablet. Okay, so what we've seen there is if you put the junket the tablet, that's kind of decomposing the protein. You're able to make from the cream, milk to the puddings or the ice creams, so that because the proteins get digested. So, stomach stores the partially digested food until the small intestine is ready to receive it. Then when the small intestine is empty, the sphincter opens to allow the partially digested food to enter the small intestine. So they can control that, like a factory. They can open and close that quite automatically. And this is something that you can't really control that by consciously. This happens unconsciously too. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you ever had like a vomit, if you ever had like a kind of burning sensation from the vomit, that's due to that hydrochloric acid. Okay, or if you ran really fast, we ran like something, then you can feel that the acid comes there too. It's creating some burning sensation as well too. Okay, so chemical, we have the pepsin in the enzyme, which is digested. That's for the protein. That's for the carbohydrates. Digestion of that. Then next, after the stomach, it goes into the small intestine. Now, small intestine, did you believe that? You have 7 meters of small intestine in your body. The 7 meters, how long is 7? Like from here to the outside of this building probably. You have that long of the small intestine. So what you can see here is kind of packing of those small intestine a lot. Okay, they kind of folded to only for one reason. This is for the absorption of the nutrient, which is the second main part of the digestive system. Okay, and it also have some chemical. It also has a chemical the digestion. 2 purposes you need to remember for the small intestine. One for the absorption, it's kind of main function, but it also digesting some of the lipids. In that case, so small intestine consists of three parts: duodenum, jejunum, and the ileum. So duodenum is the first and shortest part of the small intestine, which is right connected from the stomach to the small intestine part. It's kind of relatively thicker. Most chemical highlight that place. Most chemicals digestion takes place here, and many digestive enzymes are active in the duodenum. Some of them produced from the duodenum itself. Others are produced by the pancreas and secreted into the duodenum and the liver as well too. So what we do, we have something help of the pancreas and the liver. So we have the help of the liver and the pancreas comes along injecting some of the enzymes into the small intestine part. They're not directly involved into the digestion, they release the enzyme part. So we have a few enzymes that you need to remember. One, from the pancreas, they also release the amylase again, which is what? For the carbohydrate. From the pancreas, they also release the trypsin, which is for the protein.
What about pepsin?
Pepsin is from the stomach.
Pepsin is also pepsin.
Yeah, you get the pepsin. Do we have pepsin here? No. Look at this. Okay, from the pancreas and the duodenum itself, they'll release the enzyme called the lipase, which is for the lipids. They are basically digesting that. Duodenum itself, the maltase, which is for the carbohydrates, peptide for the proteins too. So, because we have a different type of the proteins or amino acid, they probably need a different enzymes. Remember the key and lock with the catalyst effect too. This is why they need to release this different type of enzymes into duodenums. So that's the main part. You are digesting like all the chemically, and also the help of the liver. Liver produce the fluid called the biles. So on the same page, please. It's not really shown in here, but it goes in here. Liver produce the fluid called the bile, which is secreted into the duodenum again. So some bile also goes to the gallbladder, or the sac-like organ that stores and concentrated bile and secreted into the small intestine. In duodenum, bile breaks up, highlight that place, large globular lipids into smaller globules that are easier for enzymes to break down. So biles is one of the main functions of the liver. The bile also reduces the activity of the food entering from the highly acidic stomach. This is important because digestive enzymes that work in the duodenum need a neutral environment. So, for your question, pepsin prefer the acidic environment. Except the pepsin, others are preferring some neutral environment. Means that if you have something that in the really highly acidic environment, all those enzymes will be denaturized so that you won't get the digestive system at all. You won't get the digestion at all too.
Pepsin doesn't
Pepsin prefers the acidic environment, like a stomach. Others, they are preferred that some neutral environment. Okay, so that's basically what happened here on the page 78 shows you that this is what I mean like duodenum or small intestine, which is kind of a thicker tube connected right next to the stomach, and all the help of the pancreas and bile are kind of releasing that juices into enzyme into the duodenum straight away. Does that make sense? Okay, that's what happened in the small intestine. Then after this, we get the large intestine. But let's talk more about the small intestine before we move on to here. Let's talk about absorption. After passing the duodenum for the chemical digestions, it now goes into the absorption small intestine part here. And if you look at the small intestine part, the food yet contain the complex carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. So through the reaction of the chemical digestions, they are progressively broken down so that when the food reaches the small intestine, it is the form of the simple chemical forms. So for the carbohydrate, that's broken into the sugar. The simplest the form of the carbohydrates. Proteins are breaking down into the amino acid. Lipids are broken down into the fat or like a nucleic acid. Once broken down into the simple chemical substances, there are small enough of lipids, simplest form of lipids. I'll find it out, okay? Okay, once they go through this kind of called the villi lining the small intestine. Now, villi is kind of folding of the inner layer, so you can imagine like a folding, like millions of the foldings. So you won't lose any nutrients going into that due to that huge surface area. Small intestine is a length of 7 meters, but if you have a folding inside, it can go up to like a 20 to 30 meters. Means that passing that 30 meters long of the small intestine, all the nutrients you consume will be almost like 100% absorbed into your body. Okay, so this is the kind of problem with some elderly, elderly people, like getting older. They are losing some function of the small intestine. Means that they are not able to absorb that much of nutrients as before. So giving them what? Malnutrition and some other issues too. Okay, guys, for the fat, can you just rewrite that as rather than the fat, it's actually called the triglyceride. Triglyceride, CE. This is part of the chemicals that are formed simply due to the lipids. It's basically a simple fat that we get. So absorption, it helps the villi, chemical digestions, all the duodenum. And after that, all the foods and nutrients, and after that is going into, they're going to move it down into the absorption part. Now, in the large intestine, this is what happens. You get the absorption, first of all, you get the absorption of the water. Water hasn't yet, can I stop it? Water hasn't yet absorbed into the this in your body yet, because the nutrients get absorbed in the small intestine, but not yet for here. So large intestine is the portion that they're taking all the water's intake. Then it also have the elimination of the waste, as it comes out of the forms of the feces that comes out. Kind of solidify or chunking all the waste products, and then what they do, they're kind of tubing that by the movement of the kind of tubing. So they're going to kind of put them into one together, pushing it out to the rectum, and then for the anus, so that you are successfully eliminating all that waste. Some of the waste from the liquid, the kind of some solution form, they are filtrated by the kidney. Kidney is not part of the digestive system, by the way. Okay, that's for the some regulatory systems, but they're also involved in the waste removal as well too. So like a large small intestine. Large intestine also consists of three parts: the cecum, colon, and rectum. Okay, the cecum is the first part of the large intestine, where waste enters from the small intestine. The waste are in the liquid state as they pass through the colon, which is the second part of the large intestine. Excess water is absorbed. The remaining solid waste are called the feces. The feces accumulate into the rectum, which is the third part of the large intestine. And then, as the rectum fills, the feces become compacted. After a certain amount of feces accumulate, they are eliminated from your body. And sphincter control that, anus control that, let feces pass through too. Okay, and this is what happens when you get diarrhea. Think about it in here. It means that your rectum, your rectum part is now functioning properly. So you can really, large intestine is not really accumulate that, or you simply have too much water in your bodies. So it comes into kind of really liquefied feces formed. This is called a diarrhea then. Okay, or you're not able to reabsorbing the water well. So you actually ended up with some dehydration due to the diarrhea as well too. All right, so this is summary of the large intestine. Also, the large intestine contains lots of bacteria. Highlight that, please. Trillions of bacteria that normally live in the large intestine. Most of them are helpful. In fact, we wouldn't be able to survive without them. Okay, some of the bacteria produces the vitamins which are absorbed by the large intestine. Other functions intestinal bacteria include controlling the growth of the harmful bacteria, breaking down indigested food components, producing substances that help prevent colon cancer, breaking down toxins before they can poison the body too. So you're basically in your large intestine, you're cultivating, you're carrying some of the bacteria with you too. Okay, same. This is why sometimes you are still having some bacteria, which can make them to live in your bacteria, that will closely related to your immune system later on then. Does it all make sense? Okay, let's answer some of the questions here, the comparing, especially in this page here, page 84, before we move into digestion there. Then let's compare that autotroph and heterotroph, like the nutrients and gas requirements. This is a good table. You need to remember this one. So first of all, we learned that autotroph, the gas exchange, is basically diffuses into the plant across the cell surfaces. What do we do for the heterotrophs? They are diffuses from through the respiratory system or the surface. Now, for the heterotrophs, we do not really diffuse that, but for the for the water, oh sure, don't worry about this here. This should be the other way. We need the water, heterotrophs. We are ingested through the that's called the digestive system. But CO2, we are not required. I mean, you wouldn't breathe in for the purpose of the breathing some carbon dioxide. You exhale the gas. Now, carbon dioxide gets diffused. They actually get the diffuses into the plant, especially called the stoma or stomata. So you remember this, like there's pores underneath the leaves. Okay, why the plant or autotroph requires that CO2? They need to go for the photosynthesis in that case. Waters also get diffused into through the roots for the plant, something we learned last time too. Glucose, it would not be like produced, so that ingested into the digestive system as either simple or complex carbohydrates and absorbed into the bloodstreams. But for the autotrophs, they don't have to ingest, they produce by the photosynthesis for the glucose. Protein and lipids, they're also produced by the plant from the glucose and the mineral ions. They kind of chemically ingest that too. Now, for heterotrophs, we can't produce a protein by ourselves. So what we do, we are ingested. Same here. Ingested into the digestive system. And then it's basically the same. It goes to the bloodstream, and amino acid, fatty acid, and glycerols in that case, in terms of the smaller terms. And then mineral ions, we are ingested with the digestive systems, but for the plant, they move into the plant. Move into the plant through the roots by active diffusion. Mineral ions, for example, sodium, potassium, we discussed that too. They kind of ingested it into. Now, comparing the some digestive or some of the system, the gas and the nutrient exchange for the autotrophs and heterotrophs, we need everything basically. We need to. This is why we need to know about the respiratory and digestive system, because for the respiratory, we need to inhale, exhale for the gas. For the nutrients, we need to ingest those nutrients throughout this type of the digestive system then too. Plant, as we learned last time, Plant doesn't really need to like ingest those because they are more likely producing all that nutrients by themselves, except the minerals and the water and carbon dioxide. So important to know how to compare these two. This is going to highly likely comes out in your exams, in your trials. The type of question you would get, comparing that nutrients and gas exchange in plant or the autotrophs to the heterotrophs. Good table, by the way, okay? Just need to memorize one thing. And it also shows that type of nutrients, basically we're giving all of that. Well, this is it for all of that autotroph structures and digestive respiratory systems. It's kind of broad, it kind of lots of information too, I know that, but the reason why I'm kind of explaining you a more kind of brief for the digestive system is kind of common sense, to be honest. Because you know that where the mouth, stomach, liver, gallbladder, kind of things too. Okay, so study this, and let's move into the lab to look at some of the small intestine and lung cells today.